1972 saw the release of one film that many fans believe was not only the best picture of that year, but also the best picture of any year, starring one of the finest casts ever assembled.
If you'd come to me in friendship, then the scum that ruined your daughter would be suffering this very day. And if by chance an honest man like yourself should make enemies, then he would become my enemies. And then they would fear you.
Marlon Brando's career had been languishing for more than a decade. The early promise shown in 1950s film classics such as A Streetcar Named Desire and On the Waterfront, for which he won a Best Actor Academy Award, had given way to 60s duds, including The Chase and A Countess from Hong Kong.
Why this sudden change of attitude?
Why yours?
You know why.
But Brando had to fight for the role that would rejuvenate his career. Ernest Borgnine, an Oscar winner for Marty back in 1955, wanted it, and so did Danny Thomas, best known as the star of TV's Make Room for Daddy. The studio, Paramount, had its own ideas, with a list of potential godfathers including Edward G. Robinson, as well as past Oscar winners Burt Lancaster, Orson Welles, and George C. Scott. But director Francis Ford Coppola would have none of them. He insisted on either Brando or the legendary Laurence Olivier. Olivier said no, and the studio still didn't want to give Brando the job until they saw a film of his audition. They were stunned and finally relented when they found out the unnamed actor with cotton stuffed in his cheeks was Brando. Just as impressed were his young co-stars.
Plays a guy who's 65 years old, who ages 10 years in it. It's amazing. He comes in the morning, he looks great, you know, he's healthy and young looking. He puts on that makeup, and for the rest of the day, he's sort of, you know, this old guy.
James Caan was one of 3 Godfather co-stars who competed for Best Supporting Actor. He, Robert Duvall, and Al Pacino were a talented trio who studied acting in Manhattan, but needed no lessons in copying a Hollywood attitude.
We were the most pompous, I mean, especially the guys that came out of New York, we were pompous, arrogant assholes. I mean, we were ridiculous, you know. If you didn't, you know, go to the studio or the Playhouse, or you didn't come from New York, you weren't worth 3 cents, you know what I mean? We were that arrogant. And I see kids today who didn't go there, and they're, you know, they're really quite talented, really very good. So I've learned to lose, you know, some of that arrogance, you know.
Today I settle all family business, so don't tell me you're innocent, Carl. Admit what you did. Come on. Don't be afraid, Carl. Come on, you think I make my sister a widow?
Al Pacino may have been entitled to some arrogance because, as with Brando, Paramount at first refused to hire him. The studio wanted either Warren Beatty, Jack Nicholson, or Dustin Hoffman. And there was even a suggestion that the role should be cast against type, with Ryan O'Neal playing the young Sicilian-American who takes over his father's business. But Coppola prevailed again, and Pacino got the part, which, not surprisingly for a method actor, he took very seriously.
Within the family complex, there's a sense of trust. It's very powerful. That's what is preserved. An island that was invaded as much as Sicily. The people formed families so that they could have this trust within the family compound, you see. If you had this sense of loyalty, you could combat the invaders.
As to why Laurence Olivier said no to The Godfather, he was busy making another movie that ended up putting him in direct competition with Brando for the Best Actor award. Olivier was one half of the cast of Sleuth, a cat-and-mouse battle between him and his younger rival, Michael Caine.
You're mad! You're a bloody madman!
You are a young man, dressed as a clown, about to be murdered.
It's a real game and a real murder.
Caine was asked how he managed to hold his own against a talent as prodigious as Olivier. Easy, said Caine. I do like to drink, but I didn't take a single one all during the filming. Another Brit, Peter O'Toole, was nominated for his role as an upper-class twit who just so happens to believe he's Jesus Christ. And rounding out the list of Best Actor nominees was Paul Winfield as a 1930s sharecropper in Sounder. His co-star Cicely Tyson was nominated as Best Actress. In this breakthrough year for African Americans, she was pitted against Diana Ross, the former lead singer of the Supremes.
You treat me cold each day.
Ross was lauded for her debut film performance as the legendary and drug-addicted Billie Holiday in Lady Sings the Blues.
You'd kill me for it, wouldn't you?
It was the first time 3 blacks were nominated in the lead acting categories, a feat that wouldn't be matched for nearly 3 decades.
I read somewhere that acting is believing, and that's exactly what it is. So it's not acting, because you always think of acting, oh, she's just acting silly. But that's wrong. When she's acting, she's really being believable. She's really being real. To me, acting is about truth, and it can't be a lie. I had never ever seen a man dressed in a sheet or people in sheets like that, but I had seen pictures. From the pictures, I related somewhat, but it was still unbelievable until you actually see this. And even though in filmmaking, you know that the people that are underneath the sheets that we have planned there, a strange thing happens to you. And I'm sure once they put those sheets on, a strange thing happens to them.
I am a teacher. I am a teacher first, last, always. Do you imagine that for one instant I will let that be taken from me without a fight?
Maggie Smith, who won the Best Actress Oscar 3 years earlier for the prime of Miss Jean Brodie, got invited to the party again, this time for Travels with My Aunt. Sweden's most renowned actress, Liv Ullmann, was nominated for The Emigrants, but the odds-on front-runner for the Oscar was Liza Minnelli, who wowed critics and audiences in Cabaret.
This was Sally Bowles in the early 30s.
Well, I dash all day and I work late at the cabaret.
Full of life.
I love parties. Doesn't my body drive you wild with desire?
And love.
Oh, Brad.
There was a Sally Bowles. There's really a Sally Bowles. And she never really wore anything that anybody else wore. She did all sorts of strange things. Just wore what she wanted to and what she liked. I wanted to do this for so long.
I am your host.
Liza's Cabaret co-star, Joel Grey, recreated his Broadway role as the MC and earned himself a nomination in the process.
Live is beautiful.
As did Hollywood veteran Eddie Albert in The Heartbreak Kid.
Not if they tied me to a horse and pulled me 40 miles by my tongue.
For Best Supporting Actress, the biggest nominee was Shelley Winters, who put on 50 pounds for her role in The Poseidon Adventure, a part that also required some athleticism.
I'm a very good swimmer. Johnny Weissmuller taught me to swim years ago in Brooklyn. But I want to practice underwater swimming.
Also nominated, Geraldine Page for Pete and Tilly, Susan Terrell in Fat City, Jeannie Berlin in The Heartbreak Kid, but they all lost to Eileen Heckert as the meddling mother of a young blind man in Butterflies Are Free. The rest of the big awards went to people who worked on either The Godfather or Cabaret, and early on, the musical had the advantage, winning most of the craft awards. And Joel Grey, up against those 3 Godfather brothers, beat them all. Then, the Best Actress Award. And to no one's surprise, the winner was Judy Garland's kid, Liza.
Come to the cabaret.
She did her late mama proud by achieving something Judy never did, winning Hollywood's top honor, the Oscar.
It's only...
Shelley Winters was sitting behind Diana Ross as that Best Actress envelope was opened, and Ross started sobbing uncontrollably when the name called wasn't hers. Winters tried to comfort her by saying there would be other chances to win. But Ross cried, "Not for a black woman." Cabaret may have won the most Oscars that night, 8, but it failed to snag the night's top honor, Best Picture. That went to The Godfather, and for his role as Don Corleone,
Marlon Brando in The Godfather.
Marlon Brando was awarded Best Actor. Well, he would have gotten the award if he had shown up. In one of the most controversial moments in Oscar history, Brando sent in his place a woman wearing Native American garb who introduced herself as Sasheen Littlefeather.
He very regretfully cannot accept this very generous award.
On Brando's behalf, she refused the award and made a rambling speech criticizing the film industry for its treatment of the American Indian. It was an Oscar moment that's still talked about today, but like much in Hollywood, it was at least partly an illusion. A little investigating turned up the fact that Sasheen Littlefeather wasn't her name after all, and she wasn't even a Native American, but a professional actress hired for the night by Marlon Brando. "1973, a new year and a new controversy involving Marlon Brando. This time it wasn't about his politics, but his latest movie. Last Tango in Paris was both damned and praised for its explicit sex scenes. One penetrating scene in particular, notable for its imaginative use of butter, ensured the film an X rating. But even though some critics labeled the film pornographic, Brando was again nominated as Best Actor. Brando's Godfather son, Al Pacino, now a movie star in his own right, learned there's a downside to fame when this mugshot from 1961 was made public. It seems young Alfredo James Pacino had been arrested and spent 3 days in a Rhode Island jail for carrying a concealed weapon. 12 years later, he was playing one of New York's most revered police detectives in Serpico.
We wash our own laundry around here. Now, you could be brought up in charges for this.
I always thought so, but the reality is that we do not wash our own laundry. It just gets dirty.
Pacino's move to the right side of the law was rewarded with his second consecutive Oscar nomination, while veteran Jack Lemmon, already an Oscar winner for 1955's Mr. Roberts, went up for Save the Tiger.
My God, you've got a short memory. Have you forgotten? I knew you when your name was Saul. You were running packages and going to a drawing school. Don't interrupt me.
But I delivered, didn't I?
Delivered? Half your creations are copies.
And Jack Nicholson picked up his third nomination in 5 years for playing a foul-mouthed sailor in The Last Detail.
Now, don't worry about a thing. I'm hustling this guy, understand? I got him right where I want him.
Jack turned down a couple of other jobs in order to free himself up for The Last Detail. One of them was a film that brought Robert Redford his biggest hit to date and his first Oscar nomination.
He's not as tough as he thinks. Neither are we.
The Sting reunited Redford with his Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid co-star Paul Newman.
He's there, let's get on it.
The movie might have been written off as the fluffy tale of a pair of 1930s grifters.
Anytime, JJ. Working on it.
But fluff and escapism were just what 1973 audiences craved, if for no other reason than to forget for just a couple of hours the grim realities of Vietnam and Watergate.
Got one, Billy. Here we go.
Place it on Lucky Dan.
$500,000 to win. Lucky Dan.
If this thing blows up, the feds will be the least of our problems.
This time, they might get away with it.
Redford co-starred in another huge hit that year, The Way We Were, which earned Barbra Streisand her best reviews and first Oscar nomination since her triumphant film debut in Funny Girl 5 years earlier.
I don't know when I'll be back. Could you leave a key or...
You can't. I've got steaks and baked potatoes and sour cream and chives and salad and fresh baked pie. I would have made a pot roast. I make a terrific pot roast, but I didn't know whether you ever had pot roast, whether you like pot roast. Anyway, there wasn't time because it really should be made the day before. You can't go yet. You just got to stay for supper. That's all there is to it.
What kind of pie?
Like Streisand, Marcia Mason hit it very big, very fast.
Oh, Johnny, you have a way about you.
You don't care about me, and you don't care about my kid. You're nothing but a lousy sinner, and I hate you!
In only her second movie, Cinderella Liberty, she was nominated for the time-honored role of a hooker with a heart of gold.
You know how many sailors I've been with?
Now me too, huh?
Now you too.
She hit it big off-screen as well. Playwright Neil Simon had been a widower for only 3 months when he met Mason. 3 weeks later, they were married. Mrs. Paul Newman, also known as Joanne Woodward, an Oscar winner 16 years earlier, was nominated this time for Summer Wishes, Winter Dreams. British actress Glenda Jackson remained a favorite of American critics and Academy voters. She'd already won a Best Actress Oscar in 1970 for Women in Love, was up for another one the following year for Sunday Bloody Sunday, and now, for the 3rd time in 4 years, she was nominated yet again for the romantic comedy and Best Picture nominee, A Touch of Class.
Pardon me for asking, but did you always get what you want when you wanted it?
Even before I knew what to do with it.
She loves me. She told me so last night.
Would you mind getting on the other side?
Well, I don't want to make an international incident out of this, but it's more natural for me this side.
The 5th Best Actress nominee, Ellen Burstyn, came from the year's biggest and scariest hit.
Look, your daughter doesn't say she's a demon. She says she's the devil himself.
I'm telling you that that thing upstairs isn't my daughter.
The Exorcist was a phenomenon of movie making and movie marketing. And it didn't hurt that TV reporters were telling viewers that shocked audience members were fainting and puking in their seats. That made The Exorcist a must-see, and for Academy members, a must-nominate. And that they did. It went up for 10 Oscars, including Best Picture, Director, and the subject of The Exorcism, supporting actress nominee Linda Blair. Although she was only 14 when The Exorcist was released, Blair wasn't even the youngest supporting actress nominee.
Keep your sunny side up.
Tatum O'Neal was just 10 when she played a pint-sized con artist opposite her own father, Ryan O'Neal, in Paper Moon.
Don't you go making the decisions. I make the decisions. All you gotta do is look like a pretty little girl. You don't have to worry. I ain't about to leave some poor little child stranded in the middle of nowhere. I got scruples too, you know. You know what that is, scruples?
No, I don't know what it is, but if you got them, you sure bet they belong to somebody else.
She was hailed as a natural actress. But how natural could she be, one newspaper asked, upon learning that some scenes were shot as many as 50 times. Tatum ended up taking home that Oscar, and lots of offers, including one from Interview magazine asking her if she'd pose for a nude layout. Dad said no. As the youngest Oscar winner in history, Tatum O'Neal beat out another co-star, Madeline Kahn, Sylvia Sidney from Summer Wishes, Winter Dreams, and Candy Clark in Best Picture nominee, American Graffiti.
It's one of those great old movies about romance, racing, and rock and roll.
Oh, American Graffiti. American Graffiti. Where were you in '62?
There are no experts.
The supporting actor nominees included 2 newcomers, Jason Miller as a tormented priest in The Exorcist, and Randy Quaid as a sailor on his way to the brig, but not before one last hurrah and a few hundred 4-letter words of encouragement, courtesy of Jack Nicholson. 3 veterans rounded out the category. Vincent Gardenia as a baseball manager in the tearjerker Bang the Drum Slowly, Jack Gilford as Jack Lemmon's business partner in Save the Tiger, and the winner, John Houseman in his most memorable role as the cantankerous law professor in The Paper Chase.
Loudly, Mr. Hart. Fill this room with your intelligence.
I haven't read the case.
Come in here with a skull full of mush. Mr. Hart, here's a dime. Call your mother. Tell her there's serious doubt about your becoming a lawyer.
The top acting awards went to a pair of repeat winners, Glenda Jackson for A Touch of Class and Jack Lemmon for Save the Tiger.
Fred, can you hear me?
We're to blame here. The man may die.
He's not a man, he's a casualty.
What some thought would turn out to be the Oscars' fiercest competition between The Exorcist and The Sting, each with 10 nominations, turned out to be no contest at all. The Exorcist won only 2 awards, screenplay and sound, while The Sting took home 7, including the big one, Best Picture of the Year. But the evening's most memorable moment occurred just before the Best Picture winner was announced. Actor David Niven was about to introduce Elizabeth Taylor as the night's final presenter when a naked man, a streaker, ran across the stage, greeted by screams and laughter from the audience.
Quite likely.
When the noise died down, Niven quipped, "Just think, the only laugh that man will probably ever get is for stripping and showing off his shortcomings." It was an offer Francis Ford Coppola could have refused, but luckily for movie fans, he didn't. The director of The Godfather took on the challenge of making a sequel that could hold a cannoli to the original. But he'd have to do it without Marlon Brando. The temperamental actor was still feuding with the head of Paramount Pictures over his refusal of the Oscar 2 years earlier, and now he was refusing to be in the sequel. Even without Brando, Coppola succeeded brilliantly. Critics raved and Academy voters paid their respects to The Godfather Part 2 with 10 Oscar nominations.
They're still on the property. Please, Michael, please stay inside. Keep them alive. We'll try. Michael, alive!
The film was set both before and after the original. Al Pacino reprised his role as Michael, the new head of the Corleone family. And in flashbacks, Robert De Niro played a younger version of the Vito Corleone character created by Marlon Brando 2 years earlier. Pacino earned himself a Best Actor nomination this time around.
I don't feel I have to wipe everybody out, Tom. Just my enemies.
If anything in this life is certain, if history's taught us anything, it says you can kill anyone.
While in the supporting actor category, again there were 3 performers pitted against each other. De Niro, Michael V. Gazzo as a longtime mafioso whose loyalty to the family is questioned, and acting teacher Lee Strasberg in his film debut as an aging Jewish mobster patterned after Meyer Lansky.
Michael, we're bigger than U.S. Steel.
Ensuring the Oscars would be a family affair in more ways than one, the director's father, Carmine Coppola, was nominated for co-writing the film's musical score, and his sister, Talia Shire, was up for Best Supporting Actress for repeating her role as Mafia Princess Connie Corleone. But it was truly Francis Ford Coppola's year. Not only was he up for 3 awards for The Godfather, producing the Best Picture nominee, directing and co-writing the screenplay, another film he produced and directed was also nominated for Best Picture.
Let me tell you something about Harry Cole. The best, bar none. I'll drink to that.
Best what?
The best bugger on the West Coast.
He's been following us all
They're not people to him, just voices.
3 people were murdered, that's all.
Be careful, Harry. You're just supposed to listen. Not look, not feel, not care.
The Conversation was everything The Godfather wasn't. A quiet film with a small cast, and its subject matter, wiretapping, was especially timely as the Watergate scandal played out.
Don't get involved in this, Mr. Cole.
Coppola again found himself competing for the Best Director award with the man who beat him 2 years earlier, Bob Fosse, whose follow-up to Cabaret was a gritty biography of comedian Lenny Bruce.
Ladies and gentlemen, Lenny Bruce.
How do you people really feel about doing it? Isn't that about the dirtiest thing we could do to each other?
Work clean, Lenny. Don't resort to using dirt.
Man, I'm just a comic.
You certainly have a great deal of social impact.
We all want for a wife a combination Sunday school teacher and $500 a night hooker.
Dustin Hoffman turned down the title role several times until Fosse literally got down on his knees at a party and begged him to take the part. He finally agreed and was rewarded with his third Best Actor nomination.
Have you ever seen so much blue in all your life? I seem to be under a little pressure here tonight to cool my act.
Man, what is that?
But the film regarded as Coppola's main competition in 1974 was a lush period piece of a detective movie. And despite the movie's tagline, "Forget it, Jake, it's Chinatown," Academy voters remembered Chinatown with 10 nominations.
Los Angeles, 1937. There are lots of guys like J.J. Gittes. They're easy to find, if you want to find them.
Mr. Gittes, have we ever met?
Well, no.
Never?
Never.
Since you agree with me that we've never met before, you must also agree with me that I've never hired you to do anything, certainly not spy on my husband.
Jack Nicholson played Jake Gittes, a private detective who takes on a seemingly ordinary investigation of marital infidelity, only to uncover a scandal involving money, power, corruption, and water in Depression-era Los Angeles.
Hold it there, kitty cat.
Critics called it Nicholson's finest performance to date, and he was touted as a sure bet to finally win the Oscar on this, his fourth try.
The truth. I said I want the truth.
Where were you when your husband died?
Jack's Chinatown co-star was Faye Dunaway. Off-screen, she was rumored to be very difficult to work with. But on-screen, her role as a femme fatale with a doozy of a dirty little secret earned Dunaway her first nomination since Bonnie and Clyde 7 years earlier.
I don't see anyone for very long, Mr. Gittes. It's difficult for me.
Dunaway burned up the screen in another Best Picture nominee that year. The Towering Inferno was arguably the best of a bunch of disaster movies that also included Earthquake. Together, they were jokingly referred to as Shake and Bake. But millions of dollars in profits were no joke. Neither were the 12 nominations the two pictures earned between them. Fred Astaire played an aging con man in The Towering Inferno, and Hollywood buzz pegged him as the front runner for Best Supporting Actor, a reward for his long and distinguished career. But the buzz was wrong, and when the envelope was opened, the winner was Robert De Niro for The Godfather Part 2. That other sure bet, Jack Nicholson in Chinatown, came up a loser. Instead, the Best Actor award went to Art Carney, a former TV sitcom star who charmed voters with his dramatic turn in Harry and Tonto, about a man who hitchhikes across the country with his cat. The Best Actress Oscar was awarded to Ellen Burstyn, who played a waitress with her eye on a singing career in Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore.
We ain't hiring no waitresses.
I'm not a waitress, I'm a singer.
Would you mind turn around for me?
Turn around for you? Why?
I want to look at you.
Well, look at my face. I don't sing with my... I'm not a waitress, I'm a singer. I want to sing. I want to be a singer. I'm a singer. I am a singer.
I want you and Tommy with me. What the hell do you want?
Oh, David, you just don't understand.
You could be happy here.
Oh, sure. But I'm not going to let anybody stop me this time.
Burstyn was appearing on Broadway the night of the awards, so her statuette was brought to her later by a couple of good friends who also happened to be Oscar winners, Jack Lemmon and Walter Matthau. The Supporting Actress Award went to Hollywood veteran Ingrid Bergman, now a 3-time Oscar winner, for her part in the all-star cast of Murder on the Orient Express, based on the mystery novel by Agatha Christie. She reacted to her win by telling anyone who would listen that she didn't deserve the award. The night's biggest mystery was solved last when The Godfather Part 2 muscled past Chinatown as Best Picture of the Year, with 3 of the film's 6 awards going to Francis Ford Coppola. Jack Nicholson, on the other hand, was now a 4-time loser. After the show, he told reporters, "Maybe next year, I'll be the sentimental favorite." "1975, and Jack was back, taking his 5th shot at winning that elusive Oscar. Jack Nicholson's latest best performance of his career so far was in the film version of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, about a rebellious, small-time criminal who finds himself committed to a mental hospital for evaluation.
Randall Patrick McMurphy.
Yeah, that's right.
Do you think there's anything wrong with your mind, really?
Not a thing, Doc. Anybody want to bet? I'm here to cooperate with you 100%.
Cuckoo's Nest is one of those great films that almost never got made. Based on the Ken Kesey novel published 13 years earlier, Cuckoo's Nest had one very well-known and well-connected fan, the legendary Kirk Douglas. He bought the rights to the story and in 1963 took it to Broadway and starred in a stage version that flopped. Douglas spent the next decade trying to raise money to make a film version of Cuckoo's Nest. He finally gave up and signed over the rights to his son. After Michael Douglas, then wearing a producer hat, convinced Nicholson to sign on to the project, the money flowed in, and Cuckoo's Nest went on to become one of the most profitable movies ever made. When nominations were announced, Oscar went crazy for Cuckoo's Nest, putting it up for 9 awards, including Best Picture,
Chief, I can't take it no more. I gotta get out of here.
Best Actor Jack Nicholson, for Supporting Actor, a newcomer, Brad Dourif, and for Best Actress, Louise Fletcher as the hated Nurse Ratched.
We can help him. Medication time. That's very good, Mr. McMurphy. Go ahead.
What I'd like to suggest is that we change the work detail tonight so that we can watch the ball game.
Majority rule.
Fletcher's nomination in the lead actress category sparked a minor controversy when some Hollywood observers insisted hers was merely a supporting role. Fletcher was insulted by such talk, but just about everyone agreed it was not a great year for actresses. Fletcher's competition included 2-time winner Glenda Jackson for Hedda. Jackson was not favored to win this time, and as it turned out, she wasn't even allowed to vote on the Oscars. Her Academy membership had been revoked after she neglected to pay her $50 dues. After paying her dues in Hollywood for a dozen years, sex kitten turned respected actress Anne Margaret was nominated for her role in the musical Tommy, based on the classic rock opera by The Who.
On the set of The Sunshine Boys, George Burns was asked who he felt were the funniest men of all time.
Walter Matthau and myself.
The comic credited with giving Anne Margaret her big break, George Burns, was the anointed front-runner and eventual winner of the Best Supporting Actor Award in his first movie since 1939. His co-star, Walter Matthau, was nominated as Best Actor, and together they were the Sunshine Boys.
You're old-fashioned. I'm still new-fashioned. I'm still in demand. I'm still hot.
If this room was on fire, you wouldn't be hot.
Ironically, George Burns wasn't supposed to be in the movie that revived his career. He was brought in at the last minute after the death of the man originally cast, Burns' best friend, Jack Benny. Country music was breaking through to the mainstream in 1975, so the timing was perfect for Robert Altman's movie Nashville, a slice-of-life drama with an ensemble cast. It earned 5 nominations, including Best Picture and 2 for Supporting Actress, Ronnie Blakely as a country star modeled after Loretta Lynn, and Lily Tomlin, best known as a comic on the Laugh-In TV series. Neither of them would win, however. That honor went to veteran actress Lee Grant for the comedy Shampoo. And 1975 was the year of Jaws, a summer thriller credited with setting box office records at nearly every theater it played, and blamed for an exponential growth in shark sightings at beaches on both coasts of the United States.
It's all psychological. You yell barracuda. Everybody says, huh? What? You yell shark. We've got a panic on our hands on the 4th of July.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
That's a 20-footer.
25. 3 tons on them.
It was the first of an historic string of hits by a 27-year-old director named Steven Spielberg.
When I first got started, when I was about 21 years old, there wasn't not yet a new wave. You know, the young, as they call the movie brats, hadn't quite moved into Hollywood yet. And I was caught inside the transition of men and women in their 60s, 50s and 60s who were about to leave show business, maybe even late 60s, but who had made all the great movies of the golden era. And they watched me and they symbolized, they thought I was symbolic for a new snotty wave of director coming in. And they gave me a hard time. But I think they respected me because at least I had an idea. It might not have been a good idea, but I think all they cared about was that I have ideas, as opposed to just being some kind of a white elephant. There was even a rumbling that I was about to be fired by the studio for basically being 100 days over schedule. It turned out that I was 100 days over schedule. It was the most over schedule I've ever been. And the budget went from like $4 to $9 million, which in those days, in 1974, that was a lot of money. But I was saved by my friends Sid Sheinberg and Dick Cianic. They said if I got fired, they'd quit. And they kind of saved me from losing the job.
But in spite of the huge box office success and Best Picture nomination for Jaws, Spielberg was not nominated. And as he'd find out in the years to come, this would not be the last time Oscars snubbed America's most popular director. For the 4th year in a row, Al Pacino was nominated for a role unlike any other he'd ever played.
You know something, people? You're going to be remembered the rest of your lives for the day you got held up and kidnapped. There's no money here. Well, you keep away from this bank or we're going to start throwing bodies out the front door one at a time. All right, who has to go to the bathroom here?
I do.
The most you're going to get is 5 years. You get out in 1 year, huh?
Kiss me.
In Dog Day Afternoon, Pacino played a bisexual who robbed a bank to raise money for his boyfriend's sex change operation. The boyfriend, Chris Sarandon, was nominated for his supporting role, and the film itself was up for Best Picture, a long shot if ever there was one, as was the final nominee, Barry Lyndon, a colorful period piece directed by Stanley Kubrick and starring Ryan O'Neal.
Captain Feeney, that's all the money my mother had in the world. Mightn't I be allowed to keep it? I'm just one step ahead of the law myself. I killed an English officer in a duel, and I'm on my way to Dublin till things cool down.
Mr. Barry, in my profession, we hear many such stories. Yours is one of the most intriguing and touching I've heard in many weeks. Nevertheless, I'm afraid I cannot grant your request.
When the awards were finally handed out, to nobody's surprise, the big winner was One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, and, finally, Jack Nicholson. What was surprising was the magnitude of the win. Cuckoo's Nest swept the top 5 awards: Best Picture, Director, Screenplay, Actor, and Actress, only the second film to accomplish that feat. And just so trivia buffs aren't left wondering, The only previous film to win all 5 top awards was It Happened One Night, way back in 1934. Hollywood loves a Cinderella story, and in 1976, Cinderella was a low-budget crowd pleaser about a boxer named Rocky.
You believe that America is the land of opportunity. Apollo Creed does. And he's going to prove it to the whole world by giving an unknown a shot at the title. And that unknown is you. It's the chance of a lifetime. You can't pass it by.
Sylvester Stallone was a 30-year-old actor whose career was going nowhere. And rather than wait for the script that would propel him to stardom, he decided to write it himself.
The career kind of went to a standstill when I solely depended upon other people to provide scripts I could act in. But I started realizing, hey, no one is providing the kind of thing I want to do. So why don't I just try it? I can't do anything worse than fail. There's nothing wrong with failure. At least you made the attempt.
At first, several studios were interested in his little story about an underdog boxer. But only one would meet Sly's demand that he play the title role.
Wish me luck, I'm gonna need it. They says to me, you weren't born much of a brain, you know, so you better start using your body, right? So I become a fighter.
Audiences stood up and cheered for Rocky. And among those cheering the loudest were Academy voters who championed his cause with a total of 10 nominations, including 2 for Stallone himself, Best Actor and Best Screenplay for a script he later admitted took him all of 3.5 days to write.
The script was completed very quickly. The first one wasn't what people saw on the screen. It was kind of rude and crude, but there was a heartbeat. The script, I could feel heat. Boom, 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 boom. It was alive. I knew it was good.
Other nominees included Talia Shire as the love of Rocky's life,
I take care of you, Paulie. I don't owe you nothing. And you made me feel like a loser. I'm not a loser.
Burt Young as her protective brother,
I'll break both your arms so they don't work for you. Now you're a big shot fighter on the way up. You don't even throw a crumb to your friend Paulie. You owe me.
and veteran Burgess Meredith as Rocky's trainer.
You know, I've been coming in for 6 years. In 6 years, you've been sticking it to me. I want to know how come.
You want to know?
I want to know how.
Because you had the talent to become a good fighter.
Meredith was thrilled with Rocky's success, noting that this was the only real box office smash out of all the 120 films he'd been in.
When guys get to be a Secret Service man? What? I was just curious because I thought maybe I'd make a good one.
Taxi Driver was as bleak as Rocky was uplifting. Nevertheless, Oscar was impressed by the story of an unhinged Vietnam veteran and nominated it for Best Picture.
Hi. I'd like to volunteer.
Why?
Why? Because I think that you are the most beautiful woman I've ever seen.
The taxi driver is looking for a target. Getting ready. Getting organized. Preparing himself for the only moment in his life that will ever mean anything.
I don't believe I've ever met anyone quite like you.
Oh, yeah?
You will never see a more chilling performance than this.
Godfather II winner Robert De Niro was along for the ride again, and Jodie Foster picked up her first nomination for playing an underage prostitute.
I don't know who's weirder, you or me.
Foster was only 12, and at first the California State Welfare Department refused to let her play the very adult role. But precocious Jodie was so impressive during 4 hours of psychological testing, she was allowed to take the role. Carrie was a tortured teen of a different sort, a nerdy bookworm with a religious fanatic for a mother. After being taunted mercilessly by the kids at school, Carrie gives her classmates a prom night to remember, assuming they live through it.
If you have a taste for terror, you have a date with Carrie.
The girl with the strange power.
If I concentrate hard enough, I can move things.
Sissy Spacek prepared for her role by making herself an outcast on the set and not associating with her co-stars. She got a Best Actress nomination for her efforts, and Piper Laurie, appearing in her first movie in 15 years, was welcomed back to Hollywood with a Supporting Actress nomination.
Help the sinning woman see the sin of her days and ways. Show her that if she had remained sinless, the curse of blood would never have come on her.
The Watergate scandal may have been old news by 1976, but All the President's Men made front-page headlines with its 8 Oscar nominations.
All the President's Men, the story of the 2 young reporters who cracked the Watergate conspiracy.
Robert Redford and Dustin Hoffman played the real-life newspaper reporters whose incessant digging led to the resignation of an American president.
Certainly it comes as no surprise to you that Coward was with the CIA.
No surprise at all.
They tripped over clues.
We'd like to see all the material requested by the White House.
All White House transactions are confidential.
This whole thing is a cover-up. It's right on our nose.
And piece by piece, they solve the greatest detective story in American history.
The movie went up for Best Picture, but neither Redford nor Hoffman made the cut. Instead, Oscar focused its spotlight on the eventual winner of the Best Supporting Actor Award, first-time nominee Jason Robards.
Woodward! Bernstein! Get in here!
At times, it looked as if it might cost them their jobs.
You guys are about to write a story that says the former Attorney General, the highest-ranking law enforcement officer in this country, is a crook.
Aside from Robards, all the other winners in the acting categories came from one film, a favorite of critics and the disaffected everywhere, thanks to a catchphrase still used today.
I want all of you to get up out of your chairs. I want you to get up right now and go to the window, open it, and stick your head out and yell, "I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore!"
As a network news anchor who has a nervous breakdown in front of millions of viewers, Peter Finch was the Best Actor frontrunner early on, and he made it no secret that he wanted to win.
Since this show was the only thing I had going for me in my life, I have decided to kill myself. I'm going to blow my brains out right on this program a week from today.
What the hell's going on?
Finch courted Oscar and the media by doing some 300 interviews in less than 6 months, but tragically he died of a heart attack before the nominations were even announced. His death and the ensuing sympathy vote made Finch even more of a lock, and when his name was called out, his widow went on stage and tearfully accepted for him. One of the actors Finch beat out was his network co-star William Holden, who later joked, "If the son of a bitch hadn't died, I could have had my second Oscar." Beatrice Straight, who played Holden's wife, only had 2 scenes in the entire movie, but they were 2 really good scenes, which were enough to win her the Supporting Actress Award.
I want a show developed based on the activities of a terrorist group.
Faye Dunaway may have played a murderous bank robber in Bonnie and Clyde, but she was far more ruthless as a network programmer. However, she was all smiles after winning the Best Actress Oscar and celebrated by partying all night. But when the final awards were announced, the celebration was for Rocky as Best Picture of the Year and John G. Avildsen for Best Director. In the years to come, 4 Rocky sequels would follow, with Avildsen returning to direct the last one. Later, he wished he hadn't.
I decided to do Rocky V because he dies, and Adrian addresses the press gathered at the hospital and says that her husband died at 4:18, and But as long as people believe in themselves, Rocky's spirit will live forever. And I thought that was a real classy way of going out. But the studio at the last minute chickened out and said, no, we can't kill off a franchise like that. So Rocky didn't die, but the movie did.
Sylvester Stallone said he didn't mind not winning an award himself. And why should he? His consolation prize was that he was now a household name, and he was about to embark on an amazing career that saw him become one of the highest paid actors in Hollywood history.
I do believe in cosmic collisions, that when all the forces come together, and I just think that was one of those rare moments when everything came together in one neat little package.
What do you think about when the 15th round you're coming out? Adrian!
Rocky!
Adrian!
Rocky!
Hey, where's your hat?
I love you!
I love you.